Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Gavin. Thank you very much for stopping by. Today we're continuing to look at the victims and maybe victims of the Zodiac Killer. Saturday, August 14th, 1965. A dream was coming true for Jim Boles and his wife Darlene. The two had built a brand new cabin in the San Bernardino Mountains, and they were taking their two boys, Bobby and Tommy, up to the new family hideaway located in the town of Crestline. It was to be their new home. Mr. Boles was a 43-year-old space engineer at Hughes Aircraft. Mrs. Boles, age 37, also worked for Hughes Aircraft as an electronics assembler. They lived in an upscale neighborhood in Fountain Valley, California, which is located inside Orange County, south of Los Angeles. The weekend they decided to make the move up to the mountains happened to be a time when many people wanted to leave the valley. The Watts riots were in full swing, so many valley dwellers spent the weekend out of the heat, one of the reasons for the Watts riots, in the touristy spots above LA. On this particular weekend, there were an estimated 120,000 visitors in the area of the new Boles family home. The day of August 14th began in picturesque fashion. The Boles family awakened inside their new home. They were seen walking in the Crestline business district, happy and looking relaxed, according to one witness. That was the last time anybody remembers seeing any member of the Boles family alive. By Monday morning, the 120,000 or so visitors of the Crestline area had returned to the hot Los Angeles Valley to continue their normal lives and jobs. But at Hughes Aircraft, Jim Boles did not show up for work. This was abnormal. Jim was known as a punctual and dedicated employee. People were wondering if something was wrong. When Darlene's family hadn't heard from her in a couple of days, they got worried and phoned the police asking if somebody would go by the cabin to check on Jim, Darlene, and the boys. But the entire valley was still in the thick of the Watts riots, so nobody followed through on the welfare check. When he hadn't heard back from police, Darlene's brother, Floyd Rice, drove up to the cabin with a co-worker, John Wilcoxon. When they arrived at the cabin, they noticed the Boles family dog lying on the couch in a pool of blood. They tried the door and found it unlocked. Floyd entered while John stayed outside. In the back bedroom, Floyd made a gruesome discovery. Bobby and Jim were lying on the floor. Jim was close to a closet door, which had been knocked off its tracks. Inside the closet, he saw his sister lying on the floor. He then saw that she was lying on top of Tommy. Floyd and John drove down the hill to the sheriff's substation and notified police of their discovery. Investigators found the victims had been shot a total of 42 times with a .22 caliber gun, probably a rifle, according to newspapers at the time. Jim had been shot 15 times, Darlene 14 times, Bobby 10 times, Tommy 3 times. Later reports indicated a total of 39 shots, but it's unclear to me which is most accurate. The family car was discovered abandoned about 1.5 miles from the cabin, but it wasn't in that place 2 hours earlier. Over the course of years, investigators chased lead after lead. At first, they thought they had their man when they arrested Robert F. Laughlin. He was a prison parolee that investigators were informed about from a friend of his. It turned out the timeline didn't match, and it was impossible for Laughlin to have committed the murders. He was, however, charged and ultimately convicted of the robbery of over $100,000 worth of goods. The next clue investigators had was the fact that someone was breaking into the cabin when it was sealed by their department. They thought maybe the assailant was returning to the scene of the crime to relive the thrill of the murder. Police spent 33 days straight hidden in the cabin in hopes of catching the killer returning to the scene of the crime. They ran 24-hour, two-man shifts. The killer never returned. Another clue was a mystery man who was seen by a patrolman camping above the Boles cabin. The patrolman didn't think anything of it, and he didn't report the sighting until a month later. He remembered the man was in his 40s, had thinning hair, and drove a light-colored station wagon, probably a Chrysler. The murder of Jim, Darlene, Bobby, and Tommy Boles was San Bernardino's only unsolved case in the history of the county 3 years after the fact. The lead investigator, Sergeant Charles Callahan, who was one of the first investigators on scene that Monday morning in August of 1965, said it was only a matter of time before the case would be solved. By 1966, over 3,000 interviews had been conducted and over 21,000 person hours were spent. It's unknown how many more resources have been put towards solving this case, but the fact is, it remains unsolved. Now, what in this case leads some to believe it may have been committed by the Zodiac Killer? Well, some people think the Zodiac was after people with high-tech jobs, such as the Boles, the father of Sherry Jo Bates, and the father of Valerie Percy. They also point out that Crestline is close in proximity to the Sherry Jo Bates and Joyce Walker murders. Obviously, the fact that the ammunition that was used was .22 caliber is of interest as well. Whoever committed the crime, whether it be the Zodiac or some other deranged psychopath, the killer of the Boles family has evaded law enforcement now for over 56 years. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to my channel. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below.